Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Forthy Show. I'm your host, Joshua Forsyth. Today's episode, we're going to be talking about the upcoming NHL Draft. So, talking about the NHL Draft that's upcoming, it is going to be on Tuesday, and it's going to be at 7 p.m. Eastern. And it's been known for a while that Alex Lafreniere is going to be the number one pick. And personally, I don't think that the Rangers should be going anywhere else with it. It is an absolute lock to me that they are going with it. I haven't heard any rumblings that anyone else could possibly dethrone him as that guy. It's been kind of labeled his draft for a couple of seasons now, even before it was happening for this one. They still looked at him to be the guy to be number one overall since he was probably 15 or 16. And with the draft lottery happening and the Rangers getting the first overall pick, I really think it's going to be a heck of a market for him. I am interested to see what number he's going to choose in the NHL, with 11 being retired for the Rangers after Mark Messier. But again, it's going to be a little bit of a gamble or a crapshoot after that if you were to guess who's going to go. And I think there's a lot more talent in this draft than people are giving it credit for. I think the top 10 to 15 picks, especially in a year where, let's face it, the season would have already started at this point in any other season. So they've had a little bit more time to prepare. They've had a little bit more time to get their bodies ready to adjust, and just frankly to get older. And so I think that a lot more of these rookies are going to have a chance to come into to a camp, prove themselves, and prove that they've made a jump from junior or internationally wherever they played as well. And there are a few highly touted international players coming into this draft as well. So let's just go kind of break down what we've seen in the draft so far. We do have quite a few trades between draft picks that have happened in previous years. The first one's going to be very early on as well. So the first overall pick goes to the New York Rangers. Again, I've kind of stated that's going to be the Lafreniere pick, and I think everyone in the Rangers organization is excited for that. It is interesting to see if they would have made some different choices with some rosters there. They've paid some pretty big money down the left wing, and one of them's going to be moved down. Whether that's Kreider, we'll come to see, I guess. But it is going to be interesting to see what they do on that left side. I don't know if they've had any rumblings of trades or anything like that. I do believe Kreider has a no movement clause, so that would, obviously he'd have to waive that to move, and I don't think he wanted to do that in the first place, especially after just recently signing. But, it's going to be an expensive third line, or, potentially keeping Lafreniere down on the third line, which I don't know if that's going to be the case either. So they're going to have some interesting decisions to make. Maybe somebody pops over to the right side, but then again, I don't think any of those guys have much experience playing that right side. Again, just staying with the Rangers for a quick moment, they've made a lot of interesting moves this offseason where they're moving some salary cap around, and it has been a bit of an interesting offseason for them. I don't believe that they were expecting to get a number one overall pick by any means, because they are a team that is fairly close to contending. But yeah, we'll see what happens there, and I'm excited to see how he does on that organization. There's a lot of top end talent there for him to enjoy playing with. The number 2 overall pick goes to the Los Angeles Kings, and they're a team that is completely rebuilding, but they are a team that still does have some talent up front. I know that Drew Doughty's still there on the back end, and they did just trade for Ollie Mata, which is an interesting one to me as well. He hasn't really lived up to the potential that he was supposed to live up to, but maybe a fresh start again helps him out there. And I do think that they could use some defensive help. I don't think that they're going to be looking for it in the draft this year. They do have some nice prospects coming in, like Tyler Madden from the Vancouver trade with Toffoli moving back the other way. And I do think that they go either with Quentin Byfield or Stützle out of Germany with the second overall pick. Both guys are immensely talented. Stützle plays the left side, and Byfield plays down the middle. He's a big body, good skater. Definitely fits. When you think of the Los Angeles Kings and the style that they played when they last won the Cup, Byfield's definitely the choice there. But if you look at the draft recently, and obviously the management's changed since then too, and honestly the game has changed since then. But if you look at the way they've been drafting lately, it's been pretty high skilled, high speed players, and not afraid to go internationally. And I think Andrzej Kopitar is a big reason for that as well. When you move to the third overall pick, we have the Ottawa Senators, and you're going to be hearing about them quite a bit this year, especially in the draft, but I think also in free agency. They're going to move some money around, not necessarily to spend big cash because that's not their MO, but I do think that they're going to be trying to find some guys that maybe not be the upper echelon players who are, you're spending a $7, $8, $9, $10 million over, but you are going to find those guys that are those 3 to 6 range and see what they can build through that. So they got this pick from the San Jose Sharks in the Erik Karlsson trade from a few years ago. I don't know if they fully expected this to be a number 3 overall pick when they made that trade. However, here we are, and I do think that they are going to be absolutely tickled pink with whoever that LA does not choose at the second pick, whether that be Byfield or Stützle. And when you're talking about the Ottawa Senators, they've made some recent moves. They're moving players out, moving veterans out. A lot of players are now moving on from a roster just a few seasons ago was one win away from winning a cup. And there is not one single player still on the roster from that team. And that is never going to stop shocking me when I hear that. With Bobby Ryan being bought out recently too, it's another veteran going out the door. I am wondering who's going to be around still to kind of mentor these young kids. But it is, like I said, a great opportunity to have a fresh start. It does look like they're going back to their throwback jerseys with the 2D logo, and I've heard some divided opinions on that, but I am a big fan of those. And when you are trying to bring back some, maybe a little bit of mojo, you want to think back to the rosters that had some success. You want to think back to some rosters that were kind of always in the playoffs, always in the mix, and I do like that idea as well. You're just trying to find ways to change that culture of losing that they've had the past few seasons. Detroit comes in with the number 4 pick, and they could honestly go a lot of different directions. I am definitely not going to question Steve Yzerman and the way he builds a hockey team. Very obviously, he has a big fingerprint on the Tampa Bay Lightning, who just won the Stanley Cup. And again, with so many different directions that they could go, I do think that they still need a number 2 centerman. And I do think that they're going to be looking in the draft for that, whether that be Marco Rossi or another player. I'm not sure. A lot of people have talked about potentially going with a defenseman here early, and I do think that's definitely a possibility. Drysdale is kind of the guy that's looked at as the number one defenseman in the draft, and I do think that he would be able to step up into the NHL right away. He has an immense talent at just being able to skate, move the puck well, see the ice. I am a big fan of his, and I'm excited to see where he goes. I just don't think it's going to be to Detroit. I wouldn't be upset if they did it, but I do like their defensive depth in Grand Rapids as well. Players like Joe Hickett's still sitting there, and a couple of guys who have had a few games of NHL experience just in the past seasons, kind of testing out what we have and who we can plan around in the future. It was a god awful year in Detroit last year. No one can say anything different than that. The fact that they didn't end up with the number one overall pick is, just the odds for the draft lottery. But when you were so far and away the worst team in hockey, and you honestly showed up looking at watching these games thinking, okay, is it going to be a 4-1 loss or a 5-1 loss? It's pretty tough to get any kind of momentum going that way. But again, having these types of picks, number 4 overall, that's going to really help boost that rebuilding process. Coming in at number 5 is again the Ottawa Senators. And to me, this is where Drysdale goes. This is where the defenseman comes off the board. When you already have the opportunity to take a forward and a game-changing forward in the top 3, I think you're going to be able to take a defenseman here and be quite happy about it. You get 2 pieces right off the bat that'll probably jump straight into the NHL roster next season. At least in my mind, with both of these 2 talents, and again with having a bit more time to get things going as far as finishing your junior career and moving forward into your NHL career. You had time now to train. You've had a lot more assets at your disposal than you used to have as well, to talk to players, to talk to coaches, to talk to former players, former coaches, and trainers, and different things. Like Gary Roberts has his camp that goes through and works with all these guys, and not all of them, but a lot of them, especially the guys that came from the OHL. I think a lot of these opportunities are going to be presented to these players, and I think a lot of them are going to step up, and I haven't heard anything different about Drysdale. Jumping straight over to Anaheim at number 6. What's happened to them? You're definitely seeing them get older. Perry moving over to Dallas this year, and as much of a great playoffs as he had, you could see the decline quite obviously through the regular season, and the whole roster was built around them for years and years and years, and now you're starting to see them trying to break things down, restart, rebuild, and get a fresh start there. And they do have a couple of first rounders this year to jump in and help that recovery. Where they go is anyone's guess at this point. To me, they need some scoring, but man, you have a lot of different options there. Lucas Raymond's a good choice out of Sweden. They do have a good track record there as well, taking players out of the Scandinavian leagues. But there's also Alexander Holtz. Even Cole Perfetti's another good young player. A lot of good, talented players still going to be there at number 6, and it's at this point it's going to be dealer's choice. Who do you like more? Who fits your system better? and maybe you have a connection going back through, oh, this trainer knows him, or this assistant coach used to coach in the OHL, or used to coach him in Bantam, or all these types of small little details that you never really hear about until much later. And really at this point, from 6 to even 12 or 13, I think there's a lot of good players, and we're going to see some mock drafts get blown up in this area. The next little rundown here I'm going to go through is simply going through the teams and their picks, because of the depth in this draft. I'm not going to go through every team's needs or anything like that, but after the Ducks, you get the New Jersey Devils at number 7. Again, some really talented young forwards with Heischer, Jack Hughes, both number 1 overall picks, and they're again picking number 7. It's about time we start to see them take a step in the right direction here. And again, the same could be said about the team picking at number 8, which is the Buffalo Sabres. And boy, Jack Eichel's got to be tired of losing. I know he would be, and I can't blame him. He is single-handedly carrying that team away from being the number 2 worst team in the league. I'm not going to say anyone could touch Detroit, because last year was that awful. But yeah, I honestly would have had Eichel at my number 1 for the Hart Trophy last season, and I don't think anyone else on the team was helping him at all, especially after injuries happened. Number 9 pick is Minnesota Wild. They're starting to go in the opposite direction, where they've going to start a rebuild now, I believe. I really like what Bill Guerin's been doing there. I like some of the pieces he's moved out. I like some of the pieces he's brought in. I like being able to walk away from players who've been on your team for a long, long time, like Mikko Koivu. It's not, to me, a fact of being disloyal to them. It's not anything like that. It's just simply the game has changed, and we got to move into a different direction. A lot of players that Koivu's played against are long past, and it's time to make some decisions, and I think he's made the right ones so far. I'm a big fan of everything he's been doing so far. The 10th overall pick, somewhat surprising to me, was the Winnipeg Jets. Not being able to go through the play-in round, although they did have a tough series against Calgary. But anyways, I think here they're going to start to jump in and rebuild some of the prospects they've either lost in free agency or traded away. But this is where they're going to start building that blue line back up again, and I think Sanderson out of the U.S. development team is going to be the pick here. So that's basically a breakdown of the top 10 picks. For the next 21 or so picks here, I am going to be breaking down these things a little bit faster, a little bit more rapid fire for you. I'm going to try and get you home at a decent hour here. All right, so the 11th pick goes to the Nashville Predators. Again, a very consistent, well-built team that just didn't quite get it done against Arizona in the play-in rounds. They could go absolutely anywhere with this pick, and I think they're just building depth in any spot that they go at this point. Florida has the 12th pick. They have made a couple of moves this offseason where they're sending some defensemen away, and I wonder if they go here now to help to build another piece there. I don't know if there's another pick outside of maybe Sanderson or Drysdale that is going to make an impact this season. However, it is an opportunity for them to build again their back end depth, going forward. The 13th pick comes to Carolina from the Toronto Maple Leafs in the buyout, basically, for Patrick Marleau. When you get offered the first round pick from a team for, basically for a player to not play for you, sure, if it's the 13th overall pick. definitely. They're gonna have to fix their goaltending at some point. I wonder if Askarov's the pick here. He's looks like a darn good prospect there, and it seems like a logical fit. I know Carolina won't go defense. Their owner has stated he'll never draft a defenseman in the first round. And they have a heck of a lot of good young forwards, so that leads me to believe that this would be the pick here. If it's not the pick there, I might suggest that it be the pick at number 14 for the Edmonton Oilers. Good young forward core. Gonna need some depth scoring eventually. I don't know if they're gonna get it at this point in the draft. At least short term. So when you start looking at this, okay, well, the defensemen that they have coming up, you got Bouchard still, you got Broberg coming in, Ethan Bears, made his impact on the team, and when he can play smaller minutes, he can definitely add a good contribution to your team. So the one question will be whether or not Clefbaum's going to play for your roster this season, and or is he going to undergo that surgery? It's some questions that they're going to have to answer, but I don't think it's going to be at this pick. And I think that they either go with a skilled forward who has some potential in future seasons here, or if Askarov's available, I still think they take him. The 15th pick goes to the Toronto Maple Leafs from the Pittsburgh Penguins. And breaking from the draft for a moment, I have no idea how they got this pick for that trade. Doesn't make any sense to me. I don't understand what Pittsburgh was doing. But that being said, they have this pick and they have an opportunity to build some depth here. Again, I think you're going defense at this pick, or potentially a goalie, but I don't see anyone other than Askarov, and I don't see him being available at this point. So again, you're going to need to find someone. Maybe you think that there's a player who can jump in and play forward for you in a couple seasons when you need a smaller contract to contribute with the guys like Matthews, Marner, Tavares, Nylander. It's dealer's choice at this point. Montreal Canadiens, somewhat poetically fitting in right behind the Leafs at pick number 16. And man, I've loved a lot of the moves that they've made this offseason, especially looking at the signing of Petrie, the trade for Edmondson, and subsequent signing there. And I think they've picked a lot of defensemen lately. I think they would most likely go forward here unless they can find a right-handed shot defenseman there, one that you think can contribute in the next couple of seasons. Obviously your goaltending is locked up for a long time still, so you don't need to look there. 17th pick goes to the Chicago Blackhawks. Again, they've had a heck of a run lately at finding some young players that can fit in and still mix in well with their aging core. You got Kubalik joining the team last year, who just had a dominant rookie season, especially late, playing alongside Taves. And maybe you find another two-way player here, or maybe another power play specialist. That's where I would maybe take a look here. 18th pick goes to the New Jersey Devils from the Arizona Coyotes in the Taylor Hall trade. Worked out, I think, that you get an 18th overall pick. I think when you're making that trade for New Jersey, you run that risk, but I think they'd be happy with where this one finished for them. And again, you're just trying to find someone who can step in a couple seasons from now and contribute with Heischer and Hughes. 19th pick goes to the Calgary Flames. I do think at some point they're going to need to address their defensive depth, replenishing that prospect pool there. One of my favorite storylines going into this draft is who is going to be picked at number 20. Currently it belongs to the New Jersey Devils, and it has been the most bantered about pick in the draft. It originally belonged to the Vancouver Canucks. They traded it away to the Tampa Bay Lightning for JT Miller. And that was a huge talking point about or last offseason for the Vancouver faithful. As myself, I am a Vancouver Canucks fan, and it was interesting to see all the reactions, and there was no middle ground. It was either, oh, I think this is the greatest trade ever, and there was a lot less of those ideas, or they were very confused as to why they're trading a number or a first first round pick for a player that was needing to be dumped for salary reasons. And at this point, I'm pretty sure that the Vancouver Canucks are going to be happy having JT Miller. He stepped in on that top line with Pettersson and a roundabout merry-go-round of wingers there. But they absolutely love him there now. And Tampa Bay then took the pick and sent it to New Jersey for Blake Coleman. And again, New Jersey gets the 20th overall pick. Pretty happy. And Tampa Bay gets this thing called the Stanley Cup. That was a definite piece to it. And I think everyone's happy there for some reason. The 21st overall pick goes to the Columbus Blue Jackets. Knowing Tortorella's system and knowing the chemistry in that building, I think that they're going to go for someone here who's potentially a two-way forward, or potentially a defenseman. But at that point, you're just adding strength to strength. And with Tortorella, he's going to expect a high character, high effort, high compete guy. And I think you can take this pick and find one of those guys. 22nd pick is now the property of the New York Rangers. It originally came from the Carolina Hurricanes. And a little bit of an interesting point to this was when it was the draft lottery and these teams were playing in the play-in round. And you're kind of wondering, okay, well, either way, I think the Rangers are going to walk out with a pick here, unless all of a sudden this pick, if Carolina doesn't go through, then do they win the number 1 overall pick? And that was the only way that this pick wasn't going to belong to the New York Rangers. And then subsequently they win it with their own pick anyway, so I think everyone's happy there. The 23rd overall pick belongs to the Philadelphia Flyers. Chuck Fletcher's built a team that he's added some good two-way pieces to it. I think at this point you're looking for a guy who can be a little bit more creative with it, kind of get some skill in there, maybe find a power play specialist here or there. At either end, whether it's forward or defense. Goaltender's obviously locked up for a long time with Carter Hart. The 24th overall pick goes to the Washington Capitals. Again, you've got a solid base here. At this point, all these teams are going to be quite well-rounded, and you're just trying to find the right piece to fit into the mix and see who can jump in for you. Probably not this year, but within a few seasons. The 25th overall pick goes to the Colorado Avalanche. For the first time in a long time, I feel good about where their defense is. Maybe you're trying to find a piece here that can help some depth, in a couple seasons, especially when the older or the elder statesman starts to move out or decline. The 26th overall pick goes to the St. Louis Blues. I think at this point you're looking for that guy who can jump in and get some depth scoring. Maybe another power play guy. They have a ton of guys who play a two-way, hard, gritty, high-compete game. And I think this might be a piece where you can maybe provide some offense for you. At the same point, I know Pietrangelo is leaving. I know you're trying to find some defensive help, but I don't believe at this point you're going to find that in the draft. I think that's going to be more either trade or free agency starting on Friday. The 27th pick belongs to the Anaheim Ducks. It originally belonged to the Boston Bruins. And again, I think the Ducks are going to be looking to find some offensive help. Their goal scoring has taken a massive hit in the last few seasons. And I think this provides them an opportunity to try and find someone there. There's going to be a lot of guys where you got some good points in juniors. And there's going to be a lot of these guys where if they interview well in your system and if you like the way they play and they fit on your team, that's where they're going to find them. The 28th overall pick again belongs to the Ottawa Senators. It originally belonged to the New York Islanders. And at this point, if you followed what I said in the top 10, you have a defenseman, you have a forward. Now you're just basically looking for best player available. Maybe here someone who knows a player. Maybe you have an agent who has 3 players already on your roster, and he's got another guy. Or maybe you've got a scout that was watching somebody else, and hey, these kids can play well together. Maybe that's where we look now. The 29th overall pick goes to the Vegas Golden Knights. Again, when you come in, you don't have much of a history with your drafts, but at this point, I think it's time to start improving your defense core, not just on your main roster, but in your organization. And this can be where you start to build from within your organization, because you haven't had that luxury in the past because you don't have a past. So I think that's an opportunity here where you can find a defenseman who's, again, not going to play next year, but can step in a few seasons and play a big role for you. The 30th overall pick goes to the Dallas Stars. And again, well-rounded team. You were, a few wins away from winning the Stanley Cup this season. I do think you're going to need to find some depth scoring. I love or absolutely love your defense core. I don't think there's a goalie that will go in the first round other than Askarov, so I don't think that's something that you need to look at. Again, you're probably looking at a guy who can come in and play some power play minutes for you down the road. And last but not least, the San Jose Sharks have the 31st overall pick. That is obviously originally belonged to the Tampa Bay Lightning. And again, you have absolutely anywhere you can go with this team. They were absolutely ravaged by injury last season, and you already knew that you were losing a bunch of guys to free agency. You're now losing even more guys to free agency. Your entire locker room is going to change. The culture is gone. And so now you have an opportunity to find someone and build some character. I obviously don't think that we're going to find someone here who has the game to step in right away and make that difference. But potentially a few seasons down the road, you have a guy that could be a locker room leader here for you. I do think that there are a few interesting pieces that may fall in this draft. I do think that there's so many things that are bubbling under the surface where, Tampa Bay needs to clear some salary cap going into next year. Maybe they potentially move a guy like Tyler Johnson, who I've heard rumblings has been asked to find a list of teams where he may be willing to go. He does have a full no movement clause, so he does, protect and control his future there. I have heard rumblings out of Minnesota that Matt Dumba is available. Another defenseman is Arizona shopping Oliver Ekman-Larsson and his $8.5 million contract. He did provide 2 teams that he would be willing to go to, and that would be Vancouver and Boston. I do believe Boston is very serious about that, but I also think that they're still bantering about whether or not they want to pay Krug or Larson, and what they would have to give up in order to do so. I think at either point, you're going to have to give up some pieces because you need to be able to afford the defenseman that you're paying, whether that's Krug or Ekman Larson or Pietrangelo or whoever else has been linked to them. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting line of thought there. Vancouver, I do see them as a team that needs another defenseman, whether that's another guy that can be $8.5 million when you're already going to be up against the cap and you still have to pay certain guys like Pettersson and Hughes in the next coming seasons. That's going to be a tough pill to swallow, I think, for a lot of fans. But I do think that Ekman Larson would be a great fit in Vancouver. I do think he has a lot of game left, and I think that he could rekindle some love for the game, which he's potentially lost in Arizona the past few seasons. He's had personally had a couple of rough years as well, so it could be a nice fresh start for him. And the last storyline I want to look at would be the Vegas Golden Knights having re-signed Robin Lehner to a 5-year, $25 million deal. I think that's a very team-friendly contract. I think he left some money on the table so that he could play there. But it also does mean that Marc-Andre Fleury is likely looking for a new place to play. And it's I think the sooner that Vegas can get that deal done, the more helpful that it is for them. I think the longer it lasts, the more drama comes in, and the less likely that you're going to get what you want out of that deal. If it's me looking from the other side of things, if I'm Buffalo, if I'm Detroit, that is definitely something that I'm looking at, bringing a player in. Fleury has gone into 2 different franchises at this point with a lot of uncertainty when he got there, and turned them both into to playoff teams very quickly, and obviously a former Cup champion as well. So thank you all so much for joining me. I had an absolute blast doing this video for you. I absolutely love all the behind the scenes stuff that goes into an NHL draft, or any sports draft for that matter. But if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to the channel. And I love you guys. I'll see you soon.